What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we did have that Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase, and afterwards, there were reactions flying around all over the place, with many of them mixed to even disappointed, with some wondering if it could have just been an email. Well, on top of that, we did have a lot of fighting around game key cards, which certainly made their presence known as well, which we'll go over all of that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Battlefield 6. Big information dump yesterday. All kinds of stuff, and I gotta tell you, based on what I'm seeing, this is looking like a really good Battlefield game. In fact, calling back to the days of Battlefield 3 and 4. And then we also had Hideo Kojima in an interview talking about the current landscape of gaming and how he's not exactly thrilled about it. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Kirby Air Riders, a game that we're still waiting to hear from Nintendo as to when it's coming out this year. Even though it's August, Nintendo says it's still 2025, and now a rating for the game has popped up. This we can see over on My Nintendo News, where they say Kirby Air Riders has just been rated in Saudi Arabia and given a 7+ age rating. They go on to say that apparently when these games are rated in Saudi Arabia, it's when development is complete, so they're just about ready to go. That seemed to be some speculation alongside of the rating when it was posted on X, I believe, where this is sourced from. So it's hard to say if that necessarily lines up with it maybe getting an announcement in the next week or two, although we've also seen Nintendo just hold on to games for a while after they've been completed. But this game is still slated for 2025, and it makes me think that we could see a Nintendo Today app update for something like Kirby Air Riders. It would make sense whether it's for them to announce a specific direct for this game, or just give us the release date and handle a lot of the marketing through social media as they roll up to its release. But I'd definitely keep an eye on that Nintendo Today app because something tells me Nintendo's gonna be using it quite a bit here soon. Also, there was some concern around Mafia the Old Country and if it was going to be locked at 30 FPS on consoles, which seemed to stem from the PC specifications, the requirements that were shared, as they're pretty serious. You need a nice PC to run this thing even decent, it looks like, for like basic recommended settings. However, after all of that went down, we did have the official account here. They chimed in to clarify, saying that on PS5 and Xbox Series X, Mafia the Old Country will have both quality and performance mode at launch, with the game running at an average 60 FPS in performance mode. Players who want to prioritize higher resolution and visual fidelity should select quality mode, while players who prefer to prioritize frame rate should select performance mode. So basically a 30 FPS mode, I assume, and a 60 FPS mode with quality naturally having, I'm sure, all the extra bells and whistles on, maybe even ray tracing and all that to make it look really good. I'm going to opt for the frame rate mode. I'd rather have the 60 FPS because just in general, games already look really good, even in that performance mode. And then on top of that, I have the PS5 Pro, and it should play into that here as well to uncap the frame rate. Usually select that mode, and the PS5 Pro will generally keep that dynamically moving resolution higher on the higher end throughout. So good news there. Crisis averted. Mafia the Old Country will have a 60 FPS mode again. It is coming out next week. Oh, and it looks like there is an update that's now been pushed for the Switch 2 for Dragon Quest III HD 2D. So if you have that on the Switch 1 and you got a Switch 2, go ahead, pop the cartridge in or re-download it, and you should be able to get this update, which you can see over on their website. Where that's the idea. Hey, just go ahead and download it. You're good to go there, which is awesome. I like seeing just these updates kind of just get pushed out there. And as they mention, the improvements include naturally graphics, so the game appears sharper and smoother, and additional options which allow players to prioritize frame rate or graphics. This, again, tells me the Switch 2 should be capable of 60 FPS in that game, as when you play the Switch 1 version through backwards compatibility, it locks it at 30 without too much issue. So that's what I would assume. Better visuals in terms of graphics resolution, that kind of thing, but then also lifting that frame rate cap so that the Switch 2 can take a shot at 60. Something tells me it should probably hold that pretty well. But good news there to see an update like this. Hopefully more third parties will follow suit with some of these updates, especially for games that certainly could use it and be able to tap into that Switch 2 power. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase that happened yesterday, and it was about 27 minutes long. I did a reaction to it very quickly after it had aired, just kind of giving my thoughts on it. I was pretty lukewarm. I was like in the middle, maybe a C for what I saw there and just the overall showcase. I didn't think there was anything super impactful there. Not that there weren't some interesting games that were shown, but nothing that made you go, okay, wow, that was pretty cool. Nothing like that necessarily. Still though, there were 25 different games that were revealed, and naturally, because this is a third-party showcase, a lot of game key cards too, which we'll get to that in a minute here. But first though, let's go line by line and see exactly what was announced. Starting at the top with, I think, a pretty good opener, Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection. This being Capcom showing up right away. It's coming out in 2026. Good to see this series continuing along after Stories 2. Then we move into a new game in another series, Once Upon a Katamari. So Katamari fans, really excited about this one, I'm sure. October 24th, 2025. To me, those are two good games to open a partner showcase direct. Then Ubisoft gets involved. Just Dance 2026. October 14th. I understand that's more for the mainstream in general who buy these, and it must be successful. It continues to roll along here. Then we have Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. This is also going to the Switch 1. And something, again, about this is Nintendo decided to just show logos for both systems to try to differentiate where each game was going. It's going to be kind of I don't say annoying, but definitely a cross-gen period that's going to be, it's going to be kind of hard to follow at times because you will have games come out for the Switch 1 that are backwards compatible for the Switch 2, but then also at times have an update for it or have two different versions, or it's just Switch 2. So Nintendo's trying to at least differentiate in a way with this direct that makes it very clear. However, Sparking Zero will have a Switch 1 version as well as a Switch 2 version. Kind of impressive actually to see that game go to the Switch 1. It will also have full motion controls, so you can reenact all your favorite moves from the series like you've been doing for probably the past 20 years. And anyway, this is coming out November 14th, 2025. Plants vs. Zombies Replanted. This is a remake of with the original one here. I was never a big Plants vs. Zombies person, but the people who are seem incredibly excited about this. It also has co-op October 23rd, 2025, not too far away. Then we had FC 26, that's September 26th, 2025. Pac-Man World 2 Repacks. Again, continuing on here with the Pac-Man World remakes. Local co-op, that's September 26th, 2025. Final Fantasy Tactics, The Evil East Chronicles, that's September 30th, 2025. Awesome looking game. I'm there day one for that one. Persona 3 Reload, this was rumored ahead of the event. That's October 23rd, 2025. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment did make an appearance, and they threw me off because originally it sounded like there weren't going to be partner developers there. However, during the intro of the Direct, they said that there were partner developers there, so that threw me off, but it makes sense now with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment there. No new information, just this winter, which, yes, that could mean first quarter of 2026, so we'll see how that one shakes out. Madden 26, that's August 14th, 2025. Chillin' by the Fire. Okay, it's out now. This was an odd-looking game. It also uses the camera feature for the Switch 2, so it'll put your face in the spot of where I guess people would be sitting around the fire as you try to keep the fire going and I guess stave off the elements, whether it's snow or rain or wind. So it's creative. I'll give them that. Apex Legends, we're going to Switch 2 version of that. That's August 5th, so next week. Hella, this is 2026, little mouse kind of running around there in the field. Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft is back again here, September 4th, 2025. Chronos The New Dawn, we actually got a release date for this one, September 5th, 2025. I think it looks pretty good. Has that kind of Dead Space flair to it, and yeah, I'm interested. I'll check that one out. Yakuza Kiwami 2. November 13th, 2025. We also have a Yakuza Kiwami Switch 2 update that'll be there the same day. And I think this is what's going to happen. RGG and Sega, they're just going to, I think, slowly move over all these Yakuza games up to the newest one with Infinite Wealth and all this other stuff. So I think it's going to be a constant theme as we go along. Then we had a sizzle reel with Goodnight Universe. That's November 11th. NBA Bounce, September 26th. Hello Kitty Island Adventure, Wheat Flower Wonderland. That's fall 2025. Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. That's getting a Switch 2 edition, and it's out right now. Shinobi Art of Vengeance, August 29th. The demo's out now. I got a chance to play a bit of it. It's pretty awesome. I love the visuals, the combos in the game. So you're stringing together hits and stuff. They very hard hitting. They have kind of that pause when you hit a really strong attack, and pretty good progression from what I've seen. You're collecting money and buying things for your character, and just overall, it feels like it's going to be a very concise action platforming game, and I'm having fun with that right now on the side of Ninja Gaiden. So I'll be picking up Shinobi Art of Vengeance when it drops at the end of August. Borderlands 4, of course, that is October 3rd. And then we close out with Square Enix. They had 2 titles to show us. The Adventures of Elliot the Millennium Tales. It's a new action RPG in the HD2D style. Really like them exploring more with this HD2D style. A demo is out now. I had a chance to play this one as well, and it's interesting. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, Secret of Mana vibes. Kind of has that a bit. Although I have questions around the progression, right? So when I'm going around destroying monsters, you don't really get much for it. They'll drop currency and stuff, which is fine. I was thinking I was going to get into this and you would have maybe a leveling system. I didn't see any of that. It is a demo. They're looking for feedback, so maybe that's not something they have included in this version of the game. So we'll see how it continues to progress. That is coming out 2026. And then the final game shown, Octopath Traveler 0. It had like these city builder elements to it, as you can tell, Octopath Traveler 0, it is like the prequel game where they're trying to build up the community and stuff. That's December 4th, 2025. So as I mentioned, there were games announced here. It's not like there was nothing, but it wasn't anything really hard-hitting. I like that Square Enix, again, is exploring the HD2D stuff a bit more. It's great to see a new Katamari game, Monster Hunter Stories 3, continuing that series. Even Chronos look interesting. But after we got through it, people then looked back because naturally, pre-orders go live, and wouldn't you know it, most or all game key cards were everywhere, like for all these different games. Didn't go over the best online. There is definitely a stigma naturally attached to the game key card itself, but like you can see many different accounts like Genki here, they're just starting to just screenshot and put these in collages where you have Octopath Traveler, Persona 3 Reload, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Pac-Man World Repack 2, and you look at the file sizes for these games and they're all below 64 gigabytes with even one that's like 5 gigabytes here. Yeah, it's not great, okay? I will say this, though. When you see these games and you go, okay, what's the pricing on them? You start to look, okay, 50, 60, 40, 30. You start to go, okay, I get it. Maybe we're not seeing all these games be game key cards at $70 or something like that, right? Well, then you look and Borderlands 4 shows up, game key card, $70. It's like, oh, you couldn't have sprung for the cartridge. I mean, that one's 40 gigabytes, so it still would have fit there. But I know a lot of it does come down to the read-write speeds of these newer cards. I mean, they're using microSD Express form there, so it isn't cheap. I get it. But man, people immediately are deflated when they see this kind of stuff, and it is quite frustrating, sort of the position that Nintendo has kind of put the system in. Like, these games are exciting when you see them, and it's like, cool, I get that, the physical edition of it, and it's a game key card. And trust me, if you're someone who's just digital, you're completely out of the conversation. You don't care. You're like, what? I'm just going to download it anyway. And then there are people I've seen who are just like, whatever, the game key card is fine. I'll get through it. But there are people who are vehemently, of course, against them. I'm just not really interested in buying game key cards. It's so strange to buy the card and nothing's on it. I would rather reward the companies that do make the push for a full 64 gigabyte cartridge, like your Cyberpunks, even like what we're seeing Marvelous do right now, and then naturally Nintendo. So unfortunately, I guess that means most of my collecting on the Switch 2 is going to be first party games most of the time. But the other ones, if I'm looking at, the convenience factor for it being digital, I might just buy it digitally and just call it a day there. It's just kind of the way it is. So I'm hoping it's something Nintendo can figure out, and mostly when I say figure out, it's the idea of getting these 64 gigabyte cartridges cheaper over time, as I think this is something that is falling into the growing pains category with the early adoption of this system and that format for the game cards. So maybe in a few years we look back at this point like, remember when those game key cards were showing up? Now it's just full cartridges everywhere. That would be the dream, right? I'm not counting on it, but here's hoping. Next up, let's talk about Battlefield 6 as we had the full reveal, information flying everywhere about this thing. And I gotta say, they might have one here, guys. It's one of the few times I've been really excited for a full-on military shooter multiplayer game. This looks great, okay? So I have like different trailers we can look at here. There was one where they really showed off the destruction elements, and then I have all the details as well. Those beta times we went over, like the dates all seem correct, so we'll see that start up next weekend, and there will be an open beta period, so keep that in mind. If you just want to try the game out for a couple of days, I mean, put that on the calendar. You'll be able to download it and see what you think for yourself. But let's go over some of the information we have here. It is coming to the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, and the PC, so there'll be no PS4, Xbox One version. They were quizzed about the Switch 2 version, but it sounds like they wouldn't have it ready to go now anyway, and who knows if they ever will move it to that. I guess we'll see. Anyway, it is releasing October 10th. That leaked date was correct. We have a standard version at $70, so they're not shooting for $80. And there's also this Phantom special edition you can get at $100. There are 9 maps confirmed for launch. Keep in mind, the Battlefield maps do tend to be quite large. There's a lot going on in these maps because they're these huge scale battles that are happening. I think that's pretty good. Now they talked about adding more as they go along, but the big thing here to me, heavy amounts of destruction being shown. I mean, they're blowing up everything. Buildings falling down, they shoot it with the tank and all kinds of debris goes flying out the other side. But then when you're inside the buildings, I noticed you can blow up the entire flooring if maybe there are people below you and you want to get the jump on them. Or if you hear people planning above you, you can blow up the ceiling and have them fall through you. It was really cool. They had one point where someone took a sledgehammer and just busted out a hole in the floor. It looked like old Battlefield. It looked fun. We're talking about that. They're mentioning bringing back to the feel of Battlefield 3 and 4. And for many people out there, that was the pinnacle of Battlefield. Guys, I'm excited for what I'm seeing here. Now, there is a single player campaign that is also coming. I'm not expecting it to be a super lengthy experience or anything. I mean, I would be shocked if it was 5 or 6 hours maybe. And there will also be a free to play Battle Royale mode as well in the future, and Portal is returning. So you can edit, you can create your own maps and modes, and I believe they even have experience progression that'll come over to that. There's a lot happening here, and here's the thing. When the topic of cosmetics came up, the developers say it will feel grounded and fit the universe, which I guess that means no Seth Rogen or Beavis and Butthead or Ninja Turtles. To me, that's a good thing. I've seen what's been going on with Call of Duty, and you just see it pop up on the timeline. It's the most ridiculous looking stuff you've ever seen. I mean, you have Beavis and Butthead going up and kicking someone in the crotch, and then Seth Rogen throwing his gun at the ground and happens to turn over and shoot the person while the Ninja Turtle, Michelangelo's just rolling by on a skateboard. It's what happened to Call of Duty? Anyway, looks great. I'm there day one. I'm going to try the beta, absolutely, just to see what we're dealing with. But from what they've been showing, the impressions now coming away from some of these these influencer events and stuff, it's all been positive. It looks like what I've been asking for Battlefield to go back to for quite a while. We'll see when it launches when it comes to the content and stuff, because that was very questionable with 2042, but leading up to that launch in October, they're on the right track, and I guess we'll find out with the beta period when that starts next weekend. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an interview with Hideo Kojima, as he was asked about all kinds of stuff when it comes to development, just life in general, but then also his viewpoint on the current conditions in the gaming industry. And he wasn't exactly thrilled about it. All right, so we can see this. This is in an interview with, I think it's Sens? S-S-E-N-S. I'm going with Sens. Anyway, they say Kojima sounds disappointed about the state of the industry. Studios are closing left and right, producing blockbusters that are too bloated and too expensive. Watching Summer Games Fest, a popular trailer marathon for gamers, Kojima felt like everything previewed involved fighting an alien monster or a medieval monster, saying, quote, even the visuals and the systems are pretty much the same. And a lot of people enjoy this, I understand, but it is important to put something really new in there for the industry. Perhaps it's why he plays so few games now. He believes that, like many creative fields, the most interesting work is happening among indies. While the big budget studios are churning out things that are safe and tremendously boring, this summer, Konami, mining its existing IP, will release a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater created with no involvement from Kojima. When I asked if he'll play it, Kojima laughed and said, no, I won't. He also mentioned OD as something totally different, and people will love it or hate it, which sounds very much like what he was thinking with Death Stranding. So that'll be fun discourse online when OD is eventually really shown with whatever the gameplay and the style and the setup is going to be for that one. However, is he wrong about the game industry? Not really. There is a lot of safe plays, we'll say, out there right now, and he's not wrong when you look at, it's one of the things I thought about with something like Gamescom. That's coming up. You see the opening night live, but here it's 2 hours long, and then they'll play those trailers back to back to back to back, and I've seen it where people go, wow, that's 5 space games in a row, 5 games taking place in space or a space station in a row. and they start to kind of blend together a bit. And it's very infrequent that you have something that just comes out of left field and you're like, whoa, what is that? Remember that puppet boxing game? That was one where I looked at it and I said, that's awesome. But is it really awesome just because it stands out so much? Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where we are with gaming currently, and the amount of money it costs to make a game. I just think there are fewer and fewer risks that are happening because, as Kojima mentions, studios being shut down left and right, because if something doesn't sell enough, and at this time enough might be 6 or 7 million copies to break even, then that's kind of it. Your studio's closed and they move off of you. That being the big publishers and corporations. It happens, like, honestly, the snap of a finger. It's crazy right now. So that's one of the reasons I do look to Kojima to just do weird things. Even if it's not necessarily something I really enjoy that much at times, because he will test the limits for some of his ideas. I am interested to just see what weird thing he has in mind for it, all right? And that's one of the reasons I'm looking at OD, and based on what he's shown so far, I don't know if it's going to click with me, but I'm willing to give it a shot and at least hear him out on what his vision is there. And then naturally, whatever he has cooked up for Fizzant, I can't wait to see that one, because he's been citing Metal Gear a lot with that, and it's very clear here that he's not excited for Metal Gear Solid 3, probably because it brings up a lot of bad memories for him, I guess, at Konami, and he's avoiding it. So what does he want to, what tale does he want to tell us when, he can do whatever he wants, and Fizzant is coming up. That's what I can't wait to see. But let me know how you interpret that from Kojima and if you think he's correct. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, give the Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase a grade. Yeah, okay, C is the leading answer here with 47%. The D is 30%. Wow, okay, so 77% of people who voted thought it was a C or worse. 20% thought a B. Wow, only 3% thought it was an A. Yeah, like I mentioned, is just from what I've seen online in general on social media, this is a fairly disappointing partner showcase. And at least myself, I'm probably in that C category right now. It's just like, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It also wasn't very, very good. It's passable. So we'll see. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Cheese Doodle, who says, that's exactly what I was thinking. The older games can likely no longer be milked to existing PlayStation fans, yet it costs Sony millions to make. Why not dump them on the Xbox or Switch 2 to reach an entirely new audience that might want to step foot into the Sonyverse come next gen? Yeah, that's the thing. You get to the position of, all right, we're not selling a lot of these copies of these games, even digitally. They have all the stats that show them that, obviously, if it's doing well or not. And if the game is as old as, say, Horizon Zero Dawn, they then come to the table, make the decision, would it help us, would it aid us if we then take this game, move it over to the Switch 2, in the sense that, yes, we'll get money, but also it'd be kind of advertising for PlayStation Studios games for maybe people who have only ever really checked out Nintendo, like mainstream consumers they're aware of PlayStation, but they don't have one, right? So that could be an avenue they can at least pitch at the big conference room table, as this would be a good way to get people into the ecosystem. Because not selling now, we can make some money and then also expose this brand and the talent at our studios to some of these other potential future customers. And that's kind of what they're weighing right now, because there is something to, hey, this franchise, this series is specifically tied to this brand. Nintendo's done that for ages now with basically all their first-party games. Definitely Mario. Mario is completely aligned with Nintendo. You see Nintendo, you see Mario, right? And that's something they have fostered for decades at this time. So maybe Sony's thinking about that for a few franchises. I don't think it's for all of them, though. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to see some more of my immediate reactions and thoughts to that direct partner showcase, I'll leave it in a card right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.